All right, welcome back to the RunThrough Trails podcast. We're back for another athlete interview. This is actually the second time having the lovely Gemma Moses on the podcast. Gemma HILLIER-MOSES, apologies.
I know, double barrel. Come on, give me credit.
It's been a little while since we last spoke, so we recorded an episode in Morzine.
Yeah.
That was like last June?
Yep, June, overlooking the lake, yeah.
Amazing, yeah. So that was,
long
nice
time ago.
I mean, we're in sunny Loughborough today, so could be worse. But it's quite cool, actually, because obviously me and Gemma recorded that podcast, and we talked a lot about future plans for races, and all of those races have now happened and more. So just thought it'd be the perfect opportunity to have a catch up with Gemma, chat through kind of journey since OCC through to more recent results, and just have a check in and see how you were getting on. So first of all, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks. It's great to be on. I've been listening to you and Lewis for a while.
Nice. All right. Yeah, we booted him
episodes.
off for this one.
Oh yeah, I forgot. He's usually the co-host and now he's not.
No.
So yeah, replaced by his better half. But.
Exactly. All right, cool. Well, why don't we kind of start where we left off? I should have probably re-listened to that episode, but we definitely were talking a lot about race planning and like long-term planning and what we both had in store. So a big focus that time last year for us was the terrifying prospect of racing at OCC. Massively exciting prospect. So yeah, why don't you take us through a little bit from that time in June in Morzine, leading through to the end of August in Chamonix, kind of how the end of the block went, and how the race was.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking a girl who can't remember what she did last week. So.
No, we're not talking specific sessions.
No,
but, you know.
I know. Yeah. I think, when we last spoke, we were gearing up into like a lot of being in the mountains and spending quite a bit of time there, coming back to the UK and then going back out before the OCC. So for me, I guess it was, quite a new thing to do in terms of doing the OCC. It was the biggest probably trail race of your life, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
For anyone who's either doing any of those distances. So I still do have, but still had a lot to learn at that point. So I guess, the training, we went out to Verbier actually, which was more of a training race. So we did that. For those of you who know me, I seem to get interesting conditions when we race, which was Verbier was a snow at the top and a lot of mud. So
they cancelled the longer distance, didn't they, and knocked everyone down. And
and there was about a K of snow at the top, just muddy, horrible descent. So I'd say to any trail runner, the weather is now changing, so get used to mud because it seems to be quite popular during most trail races I seem to do. But there was we started training in the mountains, which is the first time I've done that. So it's actually our first block being out in Morzine and then Chamonix, which I've never ever done before. So a big learning for myself and Lewis on that. And we camped actually, which was quite cool.
I get it all muddled up because I feel like we did so many trips last year.
Was that before Morzine? No,
so we went from
after,
Morzine to Chamonix.
Yeah,
that's when you were camping, and that's when we were doing like some long runs on the course. Like you say, big elevation.
Yeah, we did quite a lot together as well.
Yeah, we did
cool,
most of the route, didn't we? We did from Ozier to Argentière or the Tour. So obviously that was really good experience, and that was like really specific training on the course. And then Verbier, bit of a race, and then you were back to the UK, weren't you then?
Yeah, back to the UK because we had some workshops to deliver for New Levels Coaching, and then we went back out there about 2 weeks before, I think. Me and Lewis went out for a week and did off. I did the final long run at Bradgate here. I did 3 hours of laps and laps and laps of Beacon of Bradgate and Old John, which was, I was like, this is not quite the mountains. How am I going to be ready? There was a lot of doubt. And then we did like a 2-hour run out there, which was the last longer run, which was supposed to be in the heat and that was in pouring down rain because we were like, how are we going to climatize which it ended up being 30 degrees on race day. So I think the climatization happened the week before when me and you were sat outside just trying to doing work and trying to just get the race in and cope with the heat. But it was really good. It was first time to throughout that summer was to experience the course. For me, and we spoke about it a lot, that running on the course was actually really important. Definitely. The better we can know it. Because, for me, I'm not coming from like a mountain running background, so it is an advantage for me to know the course because I feel like people who live and train in the mountains already have that advantage. So, and then also my descending skills were still very not as good and still needed improving. And Lewis put me on a descending boot camp, and then by 5 days before he's like, you're not perfect, but I think you're a lot better than you were, so you're ready. Nice. So that gave me the confidence.
Yeah, that's the nod of approval. So then the race itself, obviously you had a really good run. I don't have the stats off the top of my head. Do you? Do you remember that your time? Were you 30?
6:56 or something. Yeah, I think
Okay.
6:56.
And
yeah.
it was pretty much bang on target, wasn't it?
Yeah, so bang on, like I think I was 2 minutes behind what Lou predicted.
Nice.
So that time 2 years ago, because the year before wasn't the same course, would have got you top 15.
Okay.
So obviously the depth this year was a really strong field.
Yeah.
So we based it on the training that I'd done, where I was. And then, kind of the heat probably took, like, I had to stop at every trough, every water station, for a few minutes. I mean, RunThrough Trails have got the image of me under the water thing. So, that obviously took quite a bit of time. So bang on in terms of pace. And I think the thing for me was my aim, and performance is really, really important to me. But my number one aim was getting to that finish line. Like, that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to learn how to navigate the mountains. I wanted to run well, but I also knew, like, I remember you always asking me, oh, but do you not think about like top this position, top that? And I was like, my brain doesn't work like that. I prefer just to be like, we'll see where we are in the day and how fit we are, but I do have the pacing targets, and then I'll see what happens, because actually I can't control anything else. So I think navigating the course, running as well as I can, it kind of ticked all those boxes, doing the fueling really well, and then whatever happened and whatever position I came in was what it was.
It's obviously a really good mindset to have, because I think sometimes I've definitely chatted to people in the past who they'll say that, like, I don't think about position. I'm not really thinking about other people in the race or anything like that. I'm going to run my race and see where I finish, and it's all about how I feel, about the run at the end, and if I feel like I tried my hardest and I had a good day, that's all that matters to me. I don't really care too much about the result. And I think, like, you say it and you genuinely mean it, but it's backed up by there's like definitely a lot of drive in you to perform well and do well.
Yeah.
So like that is there. You just don't want to like talk about it too much, like openly and publicly, and it helps you to perform at a high level, or it would seem to me.
Yeah.
To have this mindset.
Yeah,
like,
I think
you still care about where you place, but you just don't want to think and talk about it loads.
Yeah, and that is, that's correct in terms of, like, it's the mindset that I need to help me perform at my best. And I worked with a sports psychologist, more around like descending skills and that type of thing. But it comes into the whole of like running and performance. And I've had the natural mindset for stepping up to races when I've been always able to outperform my training. But I think that mindset is just like what works for you. And if that works, that's what's going to get the best out of you on the day. And it doesn't mean that you don't have ambitious goals. Like, I absolutely do. But in my head, I don't necessarily tie them to a position or a time, because what happens, and we were doing an event with Paula Radcliffe yesterday, and she said exactly the same thing. What happens if you're going faster? So what are you going to do if you're feeling okay and you're going faster than that time that you've had in your head or that position? What are you going to do? Panic. And it's like the race last weekend. Lewis said to me, like, he prepared me for feeling great, not feeling good at all, having to like fight my way through it, being ahead of the lead girls. Like, mentally we'd gone through a lot of that, so that when you're in the position, you're very prepared for it. So we probably prepare a lot with the process goals that help with the outcome, rather than looking at the outcome too much. Like, you kind of have an idea, but not obsess around it. Yeah.
No, I mean, it obviously works. Like, it makes a ton of sense. So, because you'd rate 50k distance wise, Cullinan was the first time you'd run that far, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, like, obviously not the same time, but like distance wise.
Yeah. So I'd done a marathon, road marathon.
Yeah.
And then Cullinan was the first trail race. No, the first, ultra trail race, which ended up being 58k.
Yeah, it's like, 57k, and I can't remember, say 1,000 meters, I don't know, 800, something like that. So pretty flat, but long. And obviously, like, ran well there. That was the November 2023. So then, 9 months later at OCC, 56k?
58, I think,
58.
near enough, depending on who's watching.
What is it with these race organisers?
Yeah.
58k and more like 3,500 meters of climbing.
Yeah.
So like an entirely different world. We always do the Munter rate stuff, and you're talking there about like 90 points versus like 60 at Cullinan. So a huge difference in terms of time. Do you remember you finishing time at Cullinan loosely?
4:46, I think.
Yeah, okay.
That's quite specific. It's around that, yeah.
So more than 2 hours longer at OCC. So what was the biggest surprise in terms of the biggest challenge that you faced at OCC that you weren't prepared for? Was there anything during the race where you were like, this thing is really hard, this aspect of the race is really hard, and I hadn't actually thought it would be that hard?
Yeah, good question, actually. I think the climbing's hard. Like, I think that's what people underestimate. And I did hike a lot of the climbs, actually. But what surprised me was how many people I was passing on the climbs who'd gone out too hard. So again, like, who were mountain runners and have that experience. So then I was like, oh, I'm not necessarily, like, I haven't had that long in the mountains to get that training fully into me yet. And so that was quite surprising in a good way. But yeah, you do realise how hard the climbs are, and when they're quite technical, it's a little bit harder to run. The thing that surprised me the most is we'd done the Argentière climb quite a lot, and I felt really comfortable on that climb when we'd done it in training, and I was like, if you do it in, say, 43 minutes or 45 minutes, you're like, well, obviously I'd be able to do that at the end of the race. And I got to Argentière and I had good legs. Like, Lewis came up to me, and I came off the kind of downhill from, it's like a zigzaggy downhill and then into Argentière.
Yeah, I was there, I remember.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And then I had legs, and I was like, if that was apparently the MCC course, which goes just undulating, bobbly down, I'd have been flying.
Yeah.
And I turned at the climb, and I was using poles the first time, and I probably wouldn't use poles necessarily on the rocky bit again. And I was like, oh God, this feels like it felt like a sauna.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
It was already hot, and then suddenly the heat I don't know, because it's woodlands, but the heat just came in, and I was like, Jesus Christ. And then Lou, compared like some of the times, I was still moving a lot quicker than, say, other people had. A lot of people do start to hit it on, like, bonk on that climb.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the hardest climb in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's still massive.
Yeah, and I
technical.
guess it's the first time you experience the fatigue on the legs. So it's not that the heart and lungs are stressed, and the legs actually can feel fine, but when you've got to go back up again, you're starting to feel the hours add together. And I also think, I was chatting to Lewis about this, I was saying it takes time to build that as a runner. So we shouldn't expect that after a year, or not even at that point 9 months of trail running.
Totally.
So that will take a few years to develop, and I'm already feeling that difference already. And for example, Coolmanon, I got through the finish line and I just cramped. You cramp worse, but you can take the award for that one. You did it before the finish line.
that hurt.
But again, and my legs are cramping, and then ever since then I haven't had that in a race. So conditioning is obviously getting there. I mean, before Coolmanon I did go to the Ryder Cup, so that probably wasn't the best prep. But then after OCC, legs felt good, but it's probably because you're going a lot slower on that climb, and there's different side of things. So I guess that's the most surprising. Yeah,
I mean, you're split through the Argentière aid station where we last saw you before you go into that climb up to back up to Flégère. Was probably like your finish time at Cullinan. I don't know exactly, but roughly. So that's fully uncharted territory in terms of you going into your 5th, 6th, 7th hour of racing, which you'd never done before. And it's the middle of the day, so it's the hottest. And nutrition-wise, at that point with the heat and the length of the race, I know you did a lot of practice and like put a lot of prep into that. How was the nutrition? Were you still able to take gels in the last kind of couple of hours of OCC?
Yeah, to be fair, it was quite good. Like, it was only on that climb I missed one. So I had my stats done by Precision. So if you go onto the Precision website, they've got all of my stats on there. Oh, cool. One thing I was low on was sodium. I didn't take enough electrolytes, but I didn't cramp or anything. I just could have taken more. Gels wise, I did 90 grams gels and carb mix every hour. It was that last climb, I didn't take a gel, which I should have taken, but I did take more Coke than I probably planned for. So I had a hell of a lot of Coke and stopped at because it's quite a long descent, and I was already quite tired and it was absolute boiling. I did stop at the top and get some Coke for the descent down, because I was like, I need to be mentally switched on here. Whereas I think if it was a cooler day, I wouldn't have done that. I'd just gone straight into the descent, because you've not got that long left. But I thought, actually, I need to navigate the descent as well. The end line's still quite a long way away here. Apart from that, the stomach, actually, everything coped really well. And I think that is, I took fueling really seriously, and I made sure I've practiced on everything, and every race, touch wood at the minute, has been fine. Nice. I'm sure I'll get one where it's not, but
So what point did you hear, because I remember we did loads of training runs on the course and stuff, and I remember for people who've been to Chamonix, if you haven't, running from Flégère down through Brevant, like that final descent that you're describing, you go through like that guy's cafe and he gets annoyed if you run too fast through the tables. But at that point, could you hear town? Could you hear like the music and the crowds and stuff? Or was it when you dropped down lower?
Yeah,
to
no,
the
you
river?
couldn't at that point. You just had the people cheering you on, the guy serving his Coke.
Yeah.
And then I was passing a couple of people that were really struggling. So that gave you a bit
That's
of energy.
nice.
Yeah. When people are walking down that descent who are clearly high up.
Yeah.
So that was quite nice. And I think at that stage I was just concentrating on getting down that bloody thing. Because you know how hard, like, it's still rocky and technical.
Oh, it's not simple, is it, at all? Switchbacks, rocky, technical, your feet are destroyed.
Yeah. So it's tough descent. And then got to the bottom and I was like, here he is. Lewis was already on the side of the bridge. And so I have to go up a bridge, which that's a surprise because you're like, oh, I could do without this. Just running straight across the road. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to have an easy K running, am I? I'm going to have Lewis is by the side, so I'm going to have to leg it. And it ended up being the fastest last K in the race. I think I was like low 5-minute miling
for the last,
which is mad, which shows I still had legs, which was great. But I was like, I wouldn't be doing that, Lewis. And it seems to happen every race when Lewis is there. But like, I'm a road runner and you look at the finish line and you're saying, how quick can I get there? And one thing we learned from Coolman, and actually, if I hadn't have had a really strong last 6K, I wouldn't have got the points to help me qualify because I didn't get automatic place. So I see points as time. Like, I'm not looking at it at all. I don't really care what the time is, but I see like every minute or every second counts towards higher points. Yeah. And that's kind of what gets me to the finish line a little bit quicker if I can. Yeah. If the legs are there. Like, if they're not, then you can't.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it was an amazing race and obviously hugely successful. I know that you left it very happy. When you had a bit of downtime after that, and then you and Lewis probably did like a bit of a post-race chat and like looked at splits and whatever. What were your main takeaways that you then learned from OCC to take into kind of training and going into the following plan? Because I know that you pretty much immediately had your eyes set on, well, you got multiple A goals this year, I guess, but the big A goal this August, which is going back to Chamonix, but running a bit further.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember if the CCC, which is 100K, if that came straight after the race or
You
not.
were already talking about it.
Yeah,
because I think you went out and you were watching like Hayden and Tony McCann on the course. Because, I mean, that's the amazing thing about that week, isn't it? Like, it's everything else. Yeah. You do your race, and that's huge. And obviously Lewis and like my dad and Paul had done ETC earlier in the week, and MCC's even on the Monday. But then we watched the 100K, we watched the 100-mile.
Yeah.
You guys were already going out and like checking out bits of the route and stuff, so you must have had it in your mind.
Yeah, I did the final part of the course.
Yeah, like Lewis was going out and checking sections.
Yeah, yeah. So probably did, and I think the reason behind that is like we always say, like, I just love being outdoors. Yeah, and as much as I love the shorter distances, I'm just like, why not? Because you can still drop back down. So there's no like, you can flirt with different distances and see. And I think the biggest thing is we wanted to see what long was like and see where my strengths lie and if I'm any good at it. And I think we got a lot of answers from Chianti in terms of the durability side of things and a mental side of things, because there's a big mental side of actually, can you handle being out there and do you want to be out there? And I think my biggest thing is I do want it. Like, you know, I can see myself doing UTMB in the not so distant future because I want to experience that. I want to be out there. And I just love everything about the longer distances. So
I mean, you've also kind of like, I mean, you've had success all through your career, and it's hard to like weigh up running a time in a road marathon versus achieving a certain position in a ultra distance trail race or whatever. But it certainly seems as you've gone longer, you've had success. So there's something about, like you say, whether it's like the mental state or just what you're excited to do, or the type of training that suits you, or the terrain or the races or whatever. But generally, you've gone longer and you've placed better, or at least had like just as good performances. So that must kind of like boost your confidence a little bit as to like, maybe this actually suits me. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I think like I had a lot of injuries across the years in road and track. So I had a lot of years out of the sport. And then so that's why then I decided to go to the marathon. And when I went to the marathon, I wouldn't say that any of my marathons were successful. Like, I had a norovirus in the one that I was probably in the best shape for. And then, to be honest, like, there was this shift when we did that trail race with you in Wales, and I was like, this is amazing. I was like, I might not have all the skills, but I love this. And then I love the travel, and I was like, this is taking me in places that I've actually always wanted to go to, like the mountains. I want to be like immersed in that, and then it was like a flick, just switching and going, this is where you're meant to be. And I think we live in a world where time is like, in road racing, times is all people talk about, and the time on the watch and this, that, and the other. I just felt there was a huge weight lifted on my shoulders where I stopped looking at time. I stopped obsessing about that. I started to connect with my body more, learn how to run to feel, and it just all felt a lot more natural and more fun. And part of the trail running side of things is that you're going on adventures, like every long run, like when we were in Chamonix doing those recce's, it was so cool. And then you're also learning skills. So I've like learned so much about the mountains, weather, like uphill, downhill, like that I wouldn't be learning in road running, that I think can then help you in all different aspects of life.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Nice, awesome. Well, then that led into, I guess, this year's plan.
Yeah.
So you didn't do another race last year, did you? Was
I
ARC
did Lady Bow.
Oh yeah, of course you did.
So I did, in the October,
Okay,
actually.
nice.
Yeah.
That was second overall, wasn't it?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, and
I
that's,
can't forget that.
we actually say that I think was an underestimate. The points didn't do that justice, I think, in terms of, because we've looked at my rate,
Yeah.
and my rate's pretty high on that compared to other races, and that, So
I mean, that must have felt flat after OCC.
Oh no, it was awesome. Well, you got the RunThrough team there.
Yeah.
I think, I did that. I think it was a month or a bit afterwards, but I had 2 full weeks off, and then just started getting back to it. And it shows, like, actually,
Nice.
if you recover well, what your body can do. And
Oh yeah, I mean that race is like a huge training stimulus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, it breaks you down as well.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that as like a athlete. When I very first started running marathons, I never really understood the whole. I understood race and then rest. That's obvious. And then the idea that you would start again and build from scratch never really made sense to me, because I'm like, I'm the fittest I've ever been. I've run a PB. I've rested for like a week. Why am I not just diving straight back into the training I was doing like 2 weeks before? But it's that kind of nice, gradual, patient build, especially when the races are getting longer, and for you, the training has sort of changed a little bit. I mean, it'd be interesting to ask you that as well, like how the training has changed. But I would imagine you're only just kind of starting out on this journey.
Yeah.
The trail running journey, so you're still improving your downhill running, you're still getting your uphill volume, the time on feet, and probably the types of runs have changed a little bit, but probably not massively. Well, I mean, I guess I'll ask you, like, how different has your training been leading into ARC and Chianti versus what you were doing leading into OCC last year? Is it more of the same, just building on top, or?
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. I think, a lot of it's building and stacking the bricks, and it's really important not to add too many stimuluses at once. I think coming into, there's obviously a lot more climbing coming into the OCC in the summer, which is what's starting to happen now. Some like a lot more treadmill stuff in that build up. A lot, obviously, you're in the mountains, so you're climbing more. Kind of probably similar mileage, but you're running more vert, so it kind of balances itself out. But we didn't start. So I did Mozart last year, and we didn't start a lot of the climbing, so the uphill treadmill stuff, until about June.
Okay.
Now we've already started that now with the stepper. So we're starting earlier in the year, basically.
Makes sense.
So we did a lot of outdoor sessions. So all my hill sessions were done outdoors until after the ARC, and then which is in January, and then I started to, from February, bring in the uphill treadmill, but only at like an 8% gradient, so nothing extreme. Just that and the stepper, and then obviously we went to Gran Canaria, so we did. We've done more hillier runs or mountain runs there than we did the year before. So again, it's because I think people sometimes see it and they jump into everything straight away, but it's because I've had 1 year. So I can't go and do the things that some of the mountain runners already do at the elite side, because they've had 5 years doing it. So I've just got to gradually do it year on year and see those benefits as well.
No, it totally makes sense. You can't increase like 5 different metrics at the same time. You can't run longer, faster, more uphill, blah 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 blah, more regularly, then that's just injury. And
I guess one thing I also did last year, I was doing 1 weight session a week, and then during the winter I did 2 heavier. So 2, and I've increased the amount of weight I lift.
Okay.
So I'm lifting pretty heavy.
So you're getting stronger.
Yeah. And then now I'm going to bring more like of the stability side of things into the next part of the season, where it's going to get more technical. And the body needs to cope with that being unstable for quite a lot. And that starts in the gym. And then obviously you gain that, the strength from that in the running as well. Yeah,
because you've had a weird season. Like, you haven't had much of a winter break, because you've gone OCC, which was massive, recovered, run Lady Bower, trained through. That would have been sort of mid-October-ish. And then obviously you ran the ARC in January, and then most recently you've just run Chianti. So to dive into those 2 now, am I right in thinking that the thought process was the ARC is in the UK, you haven't got to travel too far, it's kind of flat, it probably suits you, it's a really good opportunity to stamp your ticket for CCC or UTMB 2026.
Yeah.
Just get that tick in the book.
Yeah, so that's correct. Yeah, so it wasn't actually a goal race. So I actually did a 5K on
That's
New
right,
Year's
of
Eve.
course, yeah.
And I was in really good shape for that. But I just went out too hard. I didn't pace that one very well. Yeah, I was in really good road, like probably the best road trip I've ever been in, over 5K. But then yeah, the arc wasn't the priority. The more of the A race was Chianti. Because we're stepping up the distance.
Yeah. But you had an A performance.
Yeah, yeah. So the aim was to get the ticket to stamp the place for, it'd just be the OCC or the CCC because we can't step up to the.
That's right.
That's why Chianti would have been that one. But yeah, no, it was great. It was this course that suited me and still challenged because there's like a 4-mile section, which was quite technical and very steep and descending and up. So it was great to kind of give Sarah Alonso a little bit of run for her money, but again, like I just practiced what I needed to practice, focus on myself, and I didn't actually. I said to on the NLC podcast, I didn't actually feel very well that morning, so I came down with a migraine, couldn't eat my rice pudding, which I usually devour the bowl. I was like, oh God, get me some paracetamol. But it turned out after an hour into the race, I was like, okay, it's kicking in. I feel all right now.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, I was really, really happy with that run.
Oh, it was awesome to watch, and like I knew it was going to kind of suit you. I didn't know a whole lot about the race though. I've not actually ever run on any of those trails. Yeah. Obviously, it's a big one now because UTMB have taken it on. It's their second World Series race in the UK. If I remember rightly though, because I'm always texting Lewis when you're racing and we're like chatting. I'm trying to track you on the app that doesn't really work too well, but whatever, it's fine. And it seemed like she was running a little bit scared on the flatter sections where you were kind of closing and like feeling really strong, and then some hills towards the end of the course and she pulled away a little bit.
Yeah, it was the 4-mile section. So it basically goes down ridiculous technical steps, up, down, up. So it's quite a hilly. Okay. She's one of the best mountain runners in the world. And I think that, I think if you look on Strava, I'm Strava dark, but I do have it so I can see the segments. But she was like pretty much up with a lot of the top 4 men in that section. So she just took away on that point. But I think, like I said to Lou after that race, one thing we took into Chianti was I needed to know, I had on my watch how long was to go, but I also didn't know whether my watch was telling me where the next aid station was in the final bit. So I needed a point of where like 5K to go was, because in the arc I didn't really know. So I finished feeling quite good.
Could have gone in a bit
arc.
more.
Yeah. And I was like, I didn't really, and a bit of experience as well. I wasn't sure how much my legs had, but now knowing the difference, I'm like, oh, they actually had quite a lot, because you don't want to go too soon and then you end up like crawling through the line.
It's so hard to know.
But ultimately, I'm starting to learn where that line is, and actually, I felt pretty good, and my legs, I now know what fatigue feels like after the Chianti race. So it's just a lot of learnings as well.
Nice, awesome. Well, I mean, obviously that was a massive result, and to have, I know it wasn't an A race, but like a big race, and to finish that high up and have that good of a run and feel that good in January sets you up in like a weird place, because you're not peaking, but like you're pretty fit and the year just started. So that's kind of odd, I guess. And then you went into Gran Canaria for a bit of training, and obviously Trans Gran Canaria was happening, with the goal then to step up into a longer distance at Chianti to bridge the gap between OCC, ARC, Cullinan, 50K type stuff, and CCC, which is obviously coming up at the end of August. So let's get into Chianti, I suppose.
Yeah.
What were the stats for the course? Do you remember loosely?
75K.
Yeah.
So it said 73K, it was 75. 3,200 meters of elevation. So still quite a lot.
So similar. So like the elevation of OCC, but with another sort of 10 miles.
Yeah. So we were aiming for a similar time, around the same time that you'd be out for ACC.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So it's actually, but then I was like...
so that's quite quick then. So what's the terrain like underfoot?
Well, it was supposed to be beautiful vineyards and all that sort and dry and fast, and then we just got... It's technical. So there's a few technical... whether it's as technical as the Alps, I don't know, but it was basically a few dry service roads, but not as many as we thought there'd be. And then lots and lots of muddy ridiculously muddy descents. Like I'm talking like the first one was slip and slide, like people were all over the place.
So flashbacks to Mozart.
Yeah, flashback. Yeah, worse than Mozart.
What?
Yeah, I asked Lewis before the start. I was like, because it was chucking it down with rain, and we were all huddling under like a cafe thing before it's 7 a.m. start, and then it slowly started to ease the rain. And I said to Lewis, "This is gonna be like Mozart." He's like, "No, it's not. Don't worry." And he was just worried about the technical part of the course, which was like 50k. And I had to laugh when I got to the first part, and I was like, by the time I get to Lewis, I'm going to be like an expert after this, because it's very like small rocky rocks that are moved, lots of like mud, some nice parts of the course, but then like gully type climbs, and there was bits where rivers were coming down the course rather than just at the bottom. There was like 4 or 5 river crossings, and it was cool though. It kind of took your mind off it, because I did think if it's all like beautiful vineyards, you've not got anything to challenge you as much. Like, yeah,
I was picturing that, like sunny, rolling. I mean, you never know what the weather's going to be, but yeah, I was just thinking Chianti runnable. You see the times that people have run, and interesting. Okay, cool.
I don't know whether they changed the course, but I think if it was dry, it would be quicker.
Yeah.
But it was just that like you went through the vineyard fields, so rather than the like gravel paths, they take you through the vineyard fields, and they were just clay.
Oh man.
So like that's.
Brutal.
But then I think it's great, because I think it gives you the challenge. You have to work things out. You have to problem solve while you're going. Like you have to be really uncomfortable. Like you're like, what am I running through?
But then that's also like England. I mean, we talked all last year that every race we seemed to be doing was just like muddy and wet and cold. And we're like, when are we just going to get a nice sunny? And then OCC happened, and it was the nicest thing ever. It was probably too hot, but like it was enjoyable at least.
But it was funny, because we did a run at the peaks with Joe and Ben, who I train with, and Lewis.
Yeah.
And it was quite muddy, like a couple of weeks before Chianti, and I was being an absolute princess at the back, being like, "Oh, Chianti's just going to be like really warm and lovely. I don't need to do this." And you know, when you're just like running through, and I was like, "This is just horrible." And I was like 20 meters behind them, like having not a great day. And then, on race day, you just,
But then it pays off, because I guess like all that experience is in your head and your legs, and it does feel different. Like that lack of traction, you're not moving quite how you want to. I suppose it takes a bit of impact out. It slows you down maybe, which maybe helps, because I mean, there's one thing that you seemingly did really well was like you basically ran the perfect race. And what I mean by that is like you had a plan and you hit the splits. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty much bang on, super consistent, and ended up closing a massive gap on the lady who was in first place, passing her and obviously winning the race. Spoiler alert. So was there any point where it felt like it wasn't going to plan, or was it genuinely, obviously it would have been hard, obviously, but like, was it in control and to plan the whole time?
It was the first bit that wasn't was the first descent, where it was just a mudslide, and I saw people falling, and I was like, I don't want to fall at the start of this, so I took it quite steady. Like there was a lot of runners going past me, but actually my pacing was spot on. So whether it was me taking it steady or actually me doing it at the right pace, that's what you got to kind of weigh up. And I think that. Yeah, I think it did, but it's difficult, because I'm like, I don't think it was like a flow state or anything where it just feels a dream, because like, for example, my IT bands at about 2 hours were tense, because I think a lot of people said that the stabilizers were the things that went first. So like, because of the mud and the slippiness of it, you're constantly having to stabilize. So I've never had that feeling in my IT bands before, where after 2 hours, I was like, oh God, it's not cramping, but it's like a real tightness.
Weird.
Yeah. So I had to, that was kind of managing that the whole race. And once I realized, I think it was just going to be there, and it wasn't going to be too much of a problem. But still, like later on some of the downs, I was like, oh, this is what's, the muscular fatigue is what's preventing you. But I wonder if there wasn't as much mud, would I have got that? Because usually it's quads and hamstrings that you're thinking rather than IT bands. So that was interesting.
I think it wasn't Killian's thing. I know we went into it with maybe a bit of a niggle that was like a TFL thing, but I'm sure I heard him say TFL IT band, and he was limping towards the end.
Yeah,
maybe it was just flared it up.
Yeah, I think Gemma Moses must have said the same as well. All the stabilizers were just ouchy at the end.
Makes sense.
So yeah, I guess the biggest surprise was how close I was to Rosanna. So we knew Rosanna, we'd looked before, we knew she paced races really well. And I thought there would still be quite a big gap at like the first couple of hours.
As in you expected to be behind?
Behind, yeah. And then I just seemed to be climbing quite strong, but quite slow, if that makes sense. Right. So like just climbing at the pace that I knew was comfortable. So that zone that we always talk about of like, that kind of easy zone, because that's the only way you can describe it. But and then I just felt like other girls were walking a bit earlier, and I was like, I was learning as I went. So like the biggest thing for me, which I found really useful, was I hadn't done this before and I hadn't raced that level of competition before. So I was actually trying to learn and look at what they were doing and thinking, okay, like they're hiking, but Lewis says that most of this race I should be able to run. So I ran the whole thing, didn't hike anything.
Yeah, he said that afterwards. I was like, wow, it's unbelievable.
But I think having that Lewis's confidence, so we'd practiced a lot of things in Gran Canaria, so he knew I could. So just having those tips along the way, I was like, okay, Lewis has said this, and this is now happening. So like going through the really technical sections after 50K was just like, just steady away, like it's fine. I was like, don't panic, I can steady away. And the legs were just there. The heart and lungs like were always there. So I think the fitness is definitely there. I mean, it's just the conditioning. It
is like easy effort for you, isn't it? Because it's 7 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the last mile I was breathing out my arse, but
of course. Yeah, I mean, you have
I was going for it.
yeah, you got to get those points.
But yeah, I think, and then I guess it was surprising to be in that position where I was with Rosanna, and then I started to move ahead, and Elsie Davis was still in front, and I was like, should I be doing this? But then I just thought, this is where that previous mindset of when we had the conversation, me and Lewis, to say, if you are with them, don't panic, and if you're feeling good, it's not like I'm feeling good and pushing on. I'm just feeling good and staying where I am.
Was that like a surge to drop it, or that was just you doing your thing and she was just dropping off?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But did that then make you want to surge and make a gap, or you weren't thinking like that?
No, I was just like, because it is like run your own race. Whatever happens at the end happens. The only time, and this is a good example of it. So when I was coming into the last hour of the race, I was like, now it's like an 8-mile tempo or an 8-mile steady, and Jim I'd already been backward and forth with Jim, which was really cool. Jim Wamsley. I was like, smart. I said, hi, Jim. And he was like, oh, this is tough, isn't it? I was like, glad you're finding it hard.
Oh, he's saying that. He's like floating along half an hour in front of the second man, but yeah.
I know. And then I turned around and I expected Killian, because I was like, it'd be amazing to watch Killian come down and like see the master descending. And it was Rosanna, and I just turned and I was like, fuck. with like an hour to go, and I was like, but Lewis said he should have told me at the last aid station that she was closing. Right. And I expected that. You're not going to just walk away, like run away with
No, but it's the mental games you play, isn't it? And like that thing of, this is really hard, I've got an hour left, I can push, and then you turn around and she's right there. And you're like, I've got a race.
But the biggest thing here was I didn't say that. So I wasn't like, I'm not racing her, because I was like, I'm at the right pace here.
Interesting.
Like, I
think I would have like surged.
Yeah, so I didn't.
Panicked.
So actually she ended up having like a 1.5-minute gap on me by the time we got down to 5K to go.
Right.
So what I did was I was like, I'm going fast enough, and I think I know what it takes to tolerate that last hour, and I know what's too fast. And that comes back to training. Yeah. I think you do everything you learn in training. When I got to 5K to go, it was a different story. So I knew this time when there was 5K to go, and I just thought, you know what? It was a small road section, and we thought it was a really runnable 5K, and it ended up going back through the woods mud, into a rocky climb, and then back out again. And that's when I turned my racing brain on. So I thought, I don't need to turn it on with an hour to go. I just need to maintain, because I'm moving fast enough at this point. With 5K to go, I was like, right, here we go. With 3K to go, I was like, I'm just gonna let her have it. And then with about
really,
no, I do when you're just like
no, I don't mean really that. I know that feeling. Exactly. Anyone who's raced knows that. I mean, like, I didn't know you were still behind with 3K to go.
Oh yeah, I caught her back up with just under a mile to go.
And put a minute into her.
Two.
Jesus.
Yeah, but no, she's amazing. I mean, amazing.
Oh yeah, obviously she's amazing. But like, wow. Then that is the perfect race. Yeah. That's like pure composure. That must feel good.
Yeah, no, it does, because it takes a bit of racing brain, and I've learned a lot from Lewis off that. Like when he was at his best, he used to have an amazing racing brain, and then I've taken what he's told me from coaching, and it's just listening and learning, and then using your own mind in that last bit. And sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. Like it's not always going to be like that. But it was nice to go long and be able to finish like that, because I didn't think I'd have the ability to go hard in that last 2K or that last 5K, and I did, and that was nice.
Yeah, that's insane. Well, how do you think you would have felt if you finished and she was still just a minute in front, but you'd run the exact same race?
I'd have been disappointed, because I'd have been like, it's so close. But she also finished like third at CCC, same with Elsie Davis, like they're class runners, and Lewis wanted them to be in this race, because I think you need to start comparing yourself, or you need to start to look at those girls and just figure out where you are. So yeah, I'd have been disappointed, because I think we knew that this was by halfway through the race, I knew this was one to take if I could.
Yeah.
But equally, there's nothing I can do about somebody else having an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And she ran out of her skin, and she said it, and it was amazing. It was great to have a battle, actually, because I do like racing. I enjoy racing.
Yeah,
and sometimes in the longer stuff, you are doing a lot of your own thing. So actually having a battle is quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're a minute ahead with that 5K to go, it's just always interesting, isn't it? Like, would you be able to have that same kick? Would you run the 5K in the same time? Is it more motivating to chase? Is it more motivating to run away? It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But it sounds kind of like yours is almost perfect, because you knew she was there and you did feel good and you could pick up. And then the pacing had been so perfect. She must have blown up a bit to be running 7 minutes for the last mile instead of 5, or maybe it's not that extreme, but whatever.
I didn't run 5 minutes the last mile. It was uphill.
Well, then she was running an 8-minute mile.
I think I was running like 11, 12-minute mile.
Okay,
it was so
fine.
steep.
Oh, so that was a hill as well. So then you felt good on the climbs.
Yeah, the last mile was like that.
Wow.
So I had Lewis shouting, "This is like the 5 mile rep in the treadmill." I was like, "Oh God!"
Away.
It was a real tough finish, actually.
Wow.
It was nice. Yeah.
And how did that feel coming into town then?
Yeah, it felt really special. I think it was amazing having, like, mum and dad were like on the corner as I coming up. Lewis was obviously cheering me up, and then when I came in, the finish line was packed. It felt better than the OCC, because obviously people leave by the time by the time we get to the 20s, people are gone. But with that, obviously Jim had just finished, so I mean, being just behind Jim was beneficial for the crowds, and then I think they were expecting Killian sooner, so that kept the crowds. But it was it was pretty cool. And then I think, again, there was people high-fiving, and I was just like, I'm going to that finish line, sorry. There was no nicey nice.
Good.
I'm not Jim Wamsley yet. Just get me to that finish line and get your points. But yeah, Chianti, they put on an amazing race. And I also it was really cool because I got to see Killian finish. So like, I obviously saw Jim and just had a quick chat to him and was just starstruck. But then, Killian, about 20, 30 minutes later, Killian came through that and Vincent. So it was really cool. I just stood back and watched that on the finishing line, and that was cool.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Like, I mean, taking it back to where we started, which was that conversation in Mausian in June, when obviously you'd already like had good races and stuff. You'd already been doing quite a bit of trail running, but this whole like ultra distance World Series, UTMB, mountain running races, longer distances was a brand new venture, pretty much. To now, like you've had, I don't know, it's gone pretty well.
Don't say that.
No, I mean it has, but like just objectively, it has. It's gone really well. Have you had any challenges? Obviously, like whatever sessions are challenging, races are challenging, but I mean any like issues that have come up in that time period, coming into OCC, through OCC, all the way to now, where like externally looking purely at results, it's been like a dream. Yeah. Like if I would have written these 3 results down, you'd take that all day, right? Yeah. That would be an absolute dream. So it's been like as good of performances as you could have hoped for. Has there been any like low points, any injuries, any tough periods? I mean, I know like you didn't have the great race when you did the 5K at Battersea, but like, who cares? Kind of like it was never a big thing.
Yeah, I think this is why it's kind of a bit not surprising, but I don't feel like I've done anything special. Like I think it's just stacking the bricks, and I think I have the same issues and problems as most people. So I have niggles, like I see a chiropractor every month. I see a physio. I've had a few days here and there out. I've only just had an illness, to be fair. Illness-wise, I've been okay. But I think Lewis does the rest and recovery really well. So like for example, I've had a full week off after Chianti, and I've only ran twice this week or 3 times and done a gym session. So I'm not jumping back into anything. I'm on the flat as well. I've not touched a hill. And some people would look at that and say that's 2 weeks of that. And it's a case of like I have a rest day every 8 days. Like I'm not like go 4 weeks without a rest day. So I think there are always those challenges. Like I have tired moments. I have moments on the trails where I've cried because I can't descend quick enough, or I've fallen over, or it's hard. But I think because I enjoy this type of training, it's felt fun. So the biggest thing I said, like when me and Lou went out to Gran Canaria, I was like, this is fun because like I did like a 5-hour run where Lou met me halfway and I really enjoyed it. Whereas for some people that's a long way and they just don't enjoy it. But I'm like, don't do ultra running if you don't enjoy it, because you got to run a long time on your own. So I guess, yeah, I've got niggles, like, you know, you have tightnesses all the time. And actually with trail running, I have them in like the hip and the adductor area. So I've had to manage a lot of that, but I've learned about my body and I've learned how to navigate some of that. I've learned when to take more rest days. So I think actually homing in bigger on the recovery has been really important, and the nutrition to support that, like eating enough and fueling enough through that time, like loads of carbohydrates, but also increasing protein intake. But like you say, it's not been without its challenges. It's not just a linear, like it's not just everything's just gone like that. Of course.
It looks like that externally.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be fair, I think, if you took like the last 9 months and then you compared that to like the 9 months before and before and before, maybe it is a particularly like injury-free, illness-free, low workshop. Maybe there's external factors that have all built into it, like going so well. But it never, like you say, it's never as simple as that. It's not like, oh, I've had the perfect 9 months and nothing's gone wrong and I felt amazing in every run.
Yeah, and I also work full time. So like some days I'm like, run in the morning, cross train in the gym, and then I teach a bums and tums class, which is strength to our clients. And like I'm like, Jesus, get to the end of Monday, I'm like, whoa, like I've been in the office in between. So it's, again, I'm not a full-time athlete, so it's not easy to fit it in. I don't nap during the day. Like if you know, you have to on a Friday I have a session in the morning and then I'm straight in the office for work. And it's just navigating that and knowing that like there's nothing special, there's no quick magic things that we do. It's just stacking week on week, and then not always increasing mileage either. It's just finding out what works. And I think trust is really important, because I still go into races. So like my longest run was a 5-hour run in Gran Canaria, and I hadn't really done what I class as, I haven't really done that many of them before this, and I was like, surely I need to do more. And I trust Lewis massively, but your mind starts to go. But I didn't say anything. And then afterwards I was like, you can still, like, the race was 2 hours longer than my longest run. And when it all pieces together, it's actually all about the consistency and everything around it. And it's not just one run or one session that's going to give you those results. It's just month on month and stacking those bricks and just keeping consistent. And I think, rather than an A week where everything's amazing or that workout, it's just, if you have all workouts that are B workouts because you're a little bit tired, that's fine. Don't stress. And and that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what most of them are, isn't it? Like, it's way more important to get them done consistently than to like absolutely nail every single one. Yeah. And definitely not worrying about, I mean, it's one of the nice things with trail running is it's way harder to compare splits and stuff in workouts. So you just don't really care. No. Like you go and do a tempo. Sometimes I'll look at whatever, you do a progression run and you get to like 4 minutes a K is like the top end of the progression, but you felt like you ran okay and it was kind of muddy and windy and who cares? Yeah. Doesn't matter. Whereas if that was a marathon block, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm unfit. Like, what's happening?
I think that's the beauty of it. I've loved just tuning into how I feel. I'm like, this is the way forward. I'm like, I don't even really need to look at pace. No workouts.
Doesn't mean anything, does it?
No, because you're running up a massive climb like that and got different conditions. And I think, that's the beauty of trail running. But I do want to say, like, although from the outside this seems to be like, things have gone well and I've hit my early year targets, but I've still got a lot to learn. So there's still a difference between going to the mountains. So like the CCC is a whole different beast, like the OCC was. Like we've had learning from last year, but I still need to go out there and rediscover what that feels like again, because I haven't been to the mountains since August. So again, I'm gonna be exposed to it again, going to Snowdonia. I think Snowdonia is a great place to train for Chamonix if you get the weather.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
But I think that we still see this as like the start of the journey, and there's still loads to learn. I'm not getting complacent with any of those performances because I've got more skills to gain, more fitness to gain, more mountain fitness to gain, and there's a lot that needs to come first.
Yeah, well, so if Chianti was a 7-hour race, I don't mean like what's a goal time or whatever because you're miles away, but like what is a top 10 women's CCC time?
Yeah, I think
like 14.
So Tony McCann, I think, did around 12. I think last year. So between 12 and 14 or 15. I always say, depending on how good of a day you have.
Twice as long.
Yeah. So I think Hayden was 10.
Okay.
Yeah. So twice as long. So again, completely new. So So in a way, like this is a year, it's a testing year. So
totally. Oh no, it's super exciting. Well, then I mean, let's leave it on that. Not leave it on that, but last thing, obviously. So CCC is the big goal for the year.
Yeah.
What do your plans look like from now? Which we're recording this. It's like first week of April to CCC. Any more races? Any more trips? Like.
Yeah, so I am actually doing Snowdonia 50k, so that'll be another 7-hour race. But that's only in 6 weeks' time. So looking at it now, I'm like, oh gosh, that's going to come around quickly. So that actually isn't. That's a training race.
Yeah, that's a proper.
So that is going to be just training, just getting on that technical terrain. It gives me the excuse to go to Snowdon to do a couple of recce's, which is the training I need for the summer.
Yeah.
So it makes you do it, which is good, because it's easy just to keep cracking on here.
And that's a tough one as well. It's like 3,500 meters. It's technical.
Yes, it's probably the same as OCC, because I think it's 55k with 3,300 or 4. Yeah, so
notoriously like challenging.
Yeah, the place where me and Liz nearly had a divorce because of my descendant skills last year. Oh, no. And then I had to pull him out of a bog, so I got payback. But yeah, I'm a bit of a different runner. Well, hopefully. I was like, I'm not so sure. We'll find out. Yeah. So do that, and then maybe the Morzine one. I'm not sure. Lewis is like, do the up and down, but Morzine Trails in RunThrough Trails race. Yeah. Maybe, but we'll be out for that weekend anyway, and then just the CCC. So nice. I think with the longer stuff, it's not like you need to sharpen up or anything. Like, do you know what I mean?
You've done some racing already this year. Like the mental game's there, like the confidence is there.
Yeah,
it's probably not really that needed. Like you say, it's get in the mountains and get on the terrain and
spend a bit of time.
Plans to spend a bit of time out there in the summer?
Yeah. So we got our van back. We got a camper van back. So we lost the camper van for needed work doing for the good last 7 months. So yeah, we've got a Morzine retreat, runner retreats out there in early June or middle of June. So we'll go out for that, and then we'll spend a few weeks in the mountains, and then we need to come back for work because we've got a couple of workshops and camps, and then I'll go back out there 4 weeks before, so earlier this time.
Oh, amazing, nice.
But yeah, we do you need to be careful of your 90 days, so it's learning of how long you can actually be out there for.
Right, true.
But yeah, that'll be good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, then maybe the next one's going to be, because I'm definitely going to come and watch. We've got the RunThrough Trails Engelberg race the weekend before.
Nice.
And then we'll be driving back through Chamonix after that with Nico and Amelia. So we'll come and crew and watch for sure.
Maybe carry me around.
It's exciting. No, don't say that. I'm sure it's just as stressful. I get to experience like the Lewis side of it, which is probably incredibly stressful as well. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just like, it's been amazing and it's so cool to follow. Especially this one. Like we were in the Forest of Dean for this race recently or whatever, and it was the same weekend as Chianti, and obviously we're like following along on the live stream. They're pretty much only showing Jim, but like, what do you expect? And texting Lewis and following, and I was just like, I was so impressed. It was so cool. Like it was honestly amazing. Like I couldn't believe it when I saw the result. You know, when you like see it and you're not quite sure, like, oh, is it real? Not whether or not you could do it, but like the app's just so questionable. You don't know if it's real, and I want to like text people and say like, have you seen what Gemma's done? And I'm texting Lewis, and yeah, it's just insane. So I mean, yeah, well done. Like, so impressive. It's so cool.
Oh, thank you. I think that's why I was really excited to talk to you, because I said to Lewis, I was like, there's not many people who understand or get it. Because like,
oh no, I was like emotional. I was like, oh my God, this is insane.
You talk to some of your friends and they're like, well done, moving on. You're like, no, I've just ran for like 7 hours. But no, they care, but it's understanding. And I think, yeah, you really understand it. We have hours of chat, don't we, about different things and when we're together, and
it's class. Like, it's so cool. And like, you know, you mentioned the field a few times, and it was like a properly world-class field. And like, again, we mentioned UTMB index points all the time, and they don't tell the whole story. But the gap on paper between like your points and the points of some of these women who were like do you know where you were seeded going into the race? Would you have been?
I think I was at 8th,
10th,
I think.
8th, 10th?
Yeah.
Yeah, so to win that, obviously, that's, ridiculous performance. So I'm sure those points are going to be trickling upwards.
Hopefully.
Have they come through?
So I think I got 748 for that one. Yeah, so I've gone from being like around, and it's harder, isn't it, to get, now points are becoming harder. So
exactly.
I think I was 722 in the arc, which we thought was a little bit less than maybe. Yeah,
they seem harsh nowadays.
Yeah. So then, that was a good score. Again, we thought maybe a little bit higher, but it is what it is.
Like 760, 770. Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're beating people whose score is kind of 770, 780.
Yeah, and the score doesn't matter, because like I've been on start lists where, like in the OCC, for example, I was ranked 50th and came 26th. So I never even look at the rankings, because from a few years ago, people's scores they're a lot higher, but maybe they're not in the same shape or form. So a race is a race when you're on the start line at the end of the day, and it's good to get those points because sometimes they help you qualify, especially if you want to qualify and you don't get a top 5. They help with that. But actually after that, it's just a case of just do what you can. And because I think people having like Jim Wamsley in your race massively helps your points, for example, apparently. But who knows? Who understands?
I just thought it'd be the opposite because, it is in, like you said, the only thing the points matter for is like qualification, free entries.
Yeah.
Even like speaking with brands, different things, it's definitely a metric that people look at. But in terms of like measuring competition, fairly meaningless.
Yeah.
Because like a million different reasons.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, bit of gamification.
It's cool to be up there now. Yeah, it's cool to have that points that you go, okay, actually, that's who am I sitting around now? Yeah. Totally. But they take time, and I'm sure I'll get a few low ones as well as we go.
Just disregard those ones. Cool. All right. Well, speaking of like running in around life, I think we need to go and do a run.
We need to do a run.
And then you've got like some sort of bums and tums thing to do later, and I need to get Lewis to cook me some dinner. So
you two are on dinner duty. So.
Okay, good. That's fine. That's the only reason I come. But yeah, congratulations.
Brill, thank you. Thanks
for
having me on.
We'll do another one after CCC then, I suppose, won't we?
Yeah.
Or maybe a Mosey in the build.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, nice. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed that. Obviously, always amazing to hear from Gemma, and the results, like we said, have just been insane. So we'll definitely have her back on. And hopefully now you're all excited to go and enter a race. If you do want to enter a race, go and check out the RunThrough Trails website, and obviously all the European races that we've got. We've got races like Chianti coming up in Girona in May, and then races kind of more like OCC, CCC over in Engelberg and Mosey, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. So go and check it out. It's honestly, these places are life-changing, and even just the experience of going and visiting them and seeing some of the terrain and the mountains, it really is like how Gemma's describing it is exactly how I feel as well. They're just special places. So get out there, enjoy it, and we'll speak to you all next time.